Okay, a lot of people probably don't know that the FDA, I didn't know this either, has a way to grant certain patients access to drugs that haven't gone all the way through the FDA approval process, which, honestly can be pretty lengthy. It's called expanded access, or if you have heard of it, you've probably heard it more as compassionate use. That kind of expanded access, what's that? Well, the compassionate use kind of speaks for itself, right? FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb discussed some of the changes that are going on with this compassionate use policy in a recent post on the FDA site. I thought it was pretty interesting. So the idea behind compassionate use is to provide access to investigational drugs and devices. Now, an investigational drug or device are drugs or devices that haven't yet been approved by the FDA. They're in the pipeline, so maybe they're still in clinical trials, for instance. And provide those to patients with serious conditions, generally without any prior product approval. So they're still in the process. They haven't been approved, but certain patients can get these when there's no other therapeutic alternative for that patient, right? So this is kind of last ditch kind of thing. Right. Here's a patient. We can't cure them. They're going to die. We see you've got this drug that's in trials. It might work.
Might not, but what's the risk?
Might not, but what's the risk, right?
Right,
exactly.
Right.
So. And like I said, these are kind of patients where time is of the essence. There's no alternative. So according to Gottlieb, the FDA receives more than 1,000 applications for compassionate use, expanded access, each year, and they authorize, actually most of them, about 99% of these are authorized, and the authorization usually is a few days, but if it's an emergency, it can actually be done in a few hours.
Wow.
Now, this means taking a drug right out of the pipeline, which can be years and years long, and within a few hours, if it's an emergency, saying, okay, you can use this drug.
That's actually really impressive. The FDA is a huge organization.
Exactly.
To be able to do that in less than a day is really impressive.
It is, and they're actually trying to streamline it some more. So one of the recent changes the FDA has enacted to streamline the process is to make the approval process even easier. So right now, currently and even ongoing, prior to treating a patient under compassionate use, the doctor has to obtain approval from something called the Institutional Review Board, the IRB, at his or her facility. The problem is this is a board, and so getting all members of the board gathered at one time to present this to the board and get their yay or nay on it can be a problem, right? Because everybody might not be around. They might be on vacation or whatnot. So Gottlieb has announced that just only one IRB member, the chair or another appropriate person, can now approve the treatment. So now there's no need to gather the whole board together. And another change, and this one might raise some eyebrows, currently some drug and device providers are reluctant to allow the use of their product for compassionate use. Keep in mind, just because a doctor has knowledge, here's a drug that I think is going to work for this patient, the drug company doesn't have to go along with it. Just because the doctor wants to do it, the FDA says it's okay, the drug company can say, no, I don't want. It's not mandatory for them. It's optional. And one of the reasons some may not want to do it is because they're afraid that if there is an adverse effect from the drug, it might jeopardize their approval. And who wants to do that? They're spending millions of dollars on putting a drug through the process. They let this compassionate use thing happen. The patient has some really nasty side effect or dies or whatever. So what? Am I going to lose my approval? Am I going to be? Some don't want to do that. So Gottlieb says the FDA understands that, and they get that patients receiving expanded access, compassionate use, are usually treated, and this is the problem, outside of a controlled clinical trial setting. Remember, trials are very tightly controlled to look at everything. So as a result, these patients may have more advanced disease than clinical trial participants. They may be receiving other drugs at the same time. They may have other diseases. So there's a lot of confounding factors that make it more difficult to determine the cause of an adverse reaction. So the FDA, and this I think might, like I said, might raise some eyebrows, has released a guidance document to clarify how adverse event data in these circumstances are viewed. The guidance clarifies that suspected adverse reactions must be reported, quotes, only if there is evidence to suggest a causal relationship between the drug and the adverse event. In other words, if you don't think that there is a connection between the drug and the adverse event, that it was caused by something else, you don't have to report it.
Oh, okay.
Seems like a pretty big loophole.
Yeah.
No, that wasn't us.
Well, and
of course, yeah.
And can you even really know? I mean, I guess you could try to tease out these.
You could probably tease it out.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I still think, that aside, I still think it's if it's a last and you're willing to take the risk as a patient.
Of course, it's compassionate use. I mean, if you,
I'm going to die or I might die.
Well, I mean, you're going to die. We're all going to die. It's like, but I mean, it's like, if you're late terminal, late stage terminal with something, and this can give you another couple of months. It's a drug that they're trying,
years,
or maybe even a year. Who knows? But I mean, even a year or even a couple of months. I mean, if you want that time, you should have access to it. It should be the decision of you and the family, not send the FDA saying, no, we have other factors that are going beyond your needs, so we're not going to. It's compassionate use. That's really the better term than expanded access. Right?
Exactly.
Expanded access.
Expanded access.
Yeah. Thanks, Stuart. Good stuff.